Someone who is just following you for a little bit over a month now and would love to help trans people to the best of my abilities, I'd like to know what ways are there to support the trans community. I think knowing that would be of great help, as I already fight on Twitter against transphobes. I do not believe that just arguing with transphobes on Twitter or, you know, any social media platform like Reddit or YouTube comments and so on is as efficient as people make it out to be, unless you have a platform where people actively see you fighting and they're like, I was like on the fence of these issues, and then I saw your reply thread and I actually realized that, hey, trans people are valid. Like, only then is there some value being gained. Or, you know, like a trans person be like, oh, I feel like really alone, and and seeing you fight and argue, like, it just shows me that I'm not alone. This is basically what I do. I do not argue all day. I'm not just like sitting on Twitter arguing and like being in the reply threads. I have a platform and I just talk about certain transphobic talking points. I talk about it on stream. I turn it into videos and use it as not just like a point to like educate, but also to show people that, hey, trans people exist and we are just human beings and not this scary monster that like the media or like politicians make us out to be. If you do not have a platform and you're just sitting, for example, in my replies and you're continuously arguing with people, I think that you're mostly wasting your time, because you will never convince that transphobe of, you know, changing their mind no matter what you use. And if you don't have a platform, like, not a lot of people are going to see it in the first place. I mean, this post and I don't like it. I'm not saying that it's like useless and you should like stop doing it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that like there are better ways to just be there for trans people. Maybe you are friends with trans people, maybe you're in a community with other trans people, to just be there, to maybe listen to the microaggressions that we have to deal with, realize the underlying transphobia of a lot of the rhetoric that maybe your environment is using, and then pointing it out. Maybe, you know, when someone is talking about a trans person and they continuously use they, them pronouns or refer to them as a trans woman and not just like this woman, to maybe be like, hey, why do you do that? Not to be like confrontational, but like just point it out. Maybe you can like change someone's perception. It's just more efficient to do that with people who you have like an established relationship with, if there's like some form of trust. And it's more important for cis people to hold other cis people accountable and to make trans people feel included and welcome than it is to just like argue with transphobic people online. That is my personal take on this. I'm not saying that like nobody is going to like see this and they're like profiting off of it, right? I'm just saying that it's like incredibly tedious and frustrating to argue with transphobic people, because you're going to have the same conversation over and over and over and over again, and they never change their mind. When I started talking about being trans, I actually started talking about these things. I started opening up when I was playing the hit game AFK Arena. And I had people constantly start fights with me and argue with me. And a lot of the times they started with me publicly when I just like existed. The things that I have to endure on Twitter, on YouTube and so on are literally the things that I had to endure 8 years ago in a mobile game. I also had to deal with that in the Overwatch community, you know, getting a lot of for my voice being like, oh, you don't sound like a girl, so I'm not using the pronouns because I don't want to like support your delusions. I always heard these things. People are taught to distress and dismiss anyone who's on the other side. Yeah, exactly. At some point the objective is just to waste your time and mine outrage. The thing is, like, on Twitter, you don't even know if you're like arguing with a bot or not. Yeah, what also helps is maybe there's like some local organization where you can do something, just be active. Helping trans people feel safe around you by also holding your cis friends accountable when they do the transphobia is just way more effective. I'm not saying that being a presence online doesn't have any positive impact at all. I'm just saying that like you have to choose your battles wisely. If you're sitting on Twitter for 18 hours a day and you're just like talking to like one person and like, I don't know, 3 other people see it as well, it's not really doing a lot. When I tweet something like protect trans kids and some freak accuses me of being like a predator or something, I don't believe there's any point in just like arguing with that person. You would not gain anything from like going in here and actually having a conversation with this person, because when I'm like, hey, there's evidence to suggest that, I don't know, the age of 4, your gender identity manifests and you're like more conscious about yourself, and gender dysphoria can manifest as early as like 7 years. I was like, oh, those are grooming victims. I already know how this conversation is going to go. It will then call you brainwashed. Yeah, and if you cite any studies and so on, then it's like, oh no, the researchers are predators as well. You already know what's going to happen. So I don't see any point. I get weird comments and then I screen cap it, and sometimes I meme on things. You're just jealous of real women who have a womb and eggs to have an abortion with. LOL, something you will never have. I can get pregnant. I don't think you can get pregnant. Let's try and prove me wrong. Ayo? Ayo? Something that Lucy, for example, does. Lucy, for example, is on TikTok a lot and argues with TERFs, responding to comments basically publicly. That is how we found each other.
Well, I get where the commenter is.
Can't access a service for your born gender for fears for your own safety. Yeah, that's what cis women have been trying to sort out. I'm all for trans rights, just not at the expense of anyone else's. Women's restrooms and so on have never been safe spaces because of cis men. Like, the basis of it is literally just like, oh, because trans women are born male, that means they're going in there and doing evil things. When we have evidence to suggest, first of all, trans women are 4 times more likely of being the victim. And we also do not have any evidence to suggest that allowing trans women in women's spaces increases the harm done to cis women. There's no evidence to back it up, because, get this, evil cis men do not have to pretend to be women in order to go into women's spaces, invade women's spaces, and abuse women there. They do not have to transition before that. They don't have to change their legal name and so on before that. And I think, you know, arguing with these things and turning it into content is more effective than just like sitting in a reply thread. The thing with transphobia is it's always the same. The phrasing might be a little bit different, but it's always the same. It is better to just continuously talk about these things in like a public forum, so other people who have that same mindset, who can be changed, you know, whose mind can be changed, it's just better than to try to convince everyone individually. Next month, I'm going to like come back to this website where I'm going to like try and use these like talking points, these transphobic talking points, and just like address them individually. So people can just like redirect and like refer to this instead of having to like have that conversation over and over again with the same person or with different persons. I'm going to come back to that next month. I'm, you know, like a little bit struggling when it comes to like time and managing everything on my own. I've been a little bit burned out, but this is a big project that I have had on my mind for a really long time, because I'm getting tired of literally having to debunk the same talking points over and over again and having my videos just, you know, be suppressed by the algorithm. Like, TERFs are also claiming that all people born male are biologically wired to sexually assault women. Yeah, that's like the quote-unquote modern feminism, the quote-unquote radical feminists, making out the patriarchy to be something natural, which is something that I talked about in my latest video, right? But yeah, let's listen to what Lucy said to that.
Is coming from, and everyone does deserve to feel safe. The idea that trans rights come at the expense of cis women's just is not backed by evidence. So let's look at the facts. In 2025, a UCLA study looked at areas with trans-inclusive bathroom laws and found no increase in assaults or privacy violations. In the UK, there's absolutely no evidence that trans people being in the bathrooms that supports their gender identity poses any risk. Trans people have been using the correct facilities for years without incident. GLAAD's 2024 report found 0 cases of men pretending to be trans women to access women's bathrooms to cause harm. This is a myth. Harmful behavior is illegal regardless of gender identity.
It's also that like transphobia is literally making women's spaces unsafe. Like this restriction, this like focus on like biologically separating trans women from cis women, like obsessing over like the gametes and genitalia and so on, is making these spaces unsafe. It has the opposite effect. But yeah, imagine you have like all these sources and then you just like link to them in like a reply thread. People are not going to look at it, but someone who's maybe scrolling through the feed might learn something and be like, oh, this is a good justification. This is like a good reasoning for why trans women should be allowed in women's spaces, right? Also, I wanted to say again that you're doing an amazing job, and I'm so glad to have found you and your wonderful welcoming community as a whole. So thank you, little fops, for being you, and don't ever give up, no matter how hard it gets sometimes. I appreciate that. Thank you.